As a security leader, the ability to influence and culture the organization is critical.
But we focus on people because people matters, and it matters a lot. How you really are, what are you doing to create a safe environment to them, that they feel like accepted and that they belong to the place that they work.
So we try to build, as Gigi said, a culture of taking care of each other. That is not just about yourself, but it's about the people that you work with, your managers. Those all matter as well too.
When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode.
Since last year, things have kind of gone off the rails, right? We had the United Healthcare CEO get assassinated. That made my entire first half of the year a little bit insane. All of a sudden, I had 6 brand new clients with board-mandated projects to measure risk across their executive protection or their entire organization, all of these things. By June 1, I was at 100 Marriott nights, which I usually do in an entire year. And I said, you know what? Talking to my wife, it's okay. This will calm down and things will be back to normal. And then we get a bunch of church attacks, we get a bunch of synagogue attacks. We've had the 345 Park shooting and Charlie Kirk. Right? And I feel like this will not be slowing down for a while. So, with that in mind, I figured we'd talk about how to lead in this type of disrupted environment. I think there's a lot of questions coming from security organizations about what our leadership role is in our organization, both leading in a risk-based manner, both leading anxiety, and then within our teams, like how do we lead when potentially we have teammates that are freaked out? We have security officers not coming to work. We have EP professionals saying, I might not want to be on this detail anymore because the way things are going out there and the way we're doing things aren't the right way in my opinion, right? Everybody's starting to measure their risk. So I was at Embry-Riddle University 2 weeks ago talking to their global security and intelligence studies, and I put up a slide of a timeline from the 60s to today. And I was talking about the old guns, gates, and guards era, the 60s to the 90s, and what was going on there. We had the rise of the modern protests in the 60s with the civil rights movement, with the college campus protests against the Vietnam War. Those things spurned terrorists and also special interest groups that started targeting the government, trying to create differences in policy, and then that didn't work. And so at the end of the 70s and began the 80s, these groups turned to CEOs and said, if we can disrupt business, make them change what they're doing, then policy will change. And that went on through the 80s into the 90s. And we're kind of right back there again. Except back then, the local police or the FBI could tap the phone. They could go to a local bar and listen to what's being said. Now we have gamers on all these game systems. We have Discord. We have encrypted apps. As 5G is coming into its fullness, did you know that up to 60% of messaging and voice traffic on 5G networks will not hit a service tower? It won't cross AT&T. It will not cross T-Mobile or Verizon, because all of these devices create a mesh network to enable these super fast speeds. And so the federal government, the way that we expect them to be on the edge of terrorism and to be on the edge of public disruption and to be on the edge of criminal activity, their role is going to be very limited because they will actually just have nothing. And so over the past year, as I go to these companies, I talk with these chief human resources officers, the general counsels, and I ask them, help me understand your baseline of normal when it comes to your employees and your contingent workers, your people risk, and then what spikes are sticking up that you're having trouble managing. And almost universally, they say, we don't even understand what a happy employee looks like. We simply don't have them. Everybody is upset. We do something good, we think everybody's gonna like, people hate it. We do something, implement a policy that people are going to not like, everybody hates it even worse. We say, hey, go to the office. We hate that. Stay at home. We hate that. Everybody's a bunch of haters, and Taylor Swift was right. Haters gonna hate. But these organizations can't shake it off. See what I did there? You're welcome. So, thank you. So anyways, for the next 20 or 30 years, in my immensely humble opinion, this is what we're going to be dealing with, and leadership will be paramount. And John Dillard, I feel like you might have something to talk about.
I may or may not. I think something.
That's what I do.
At that spot. Really interesting points here. You know, it's fascinating to me because 2 weeks ago, I interviewed the Chief Security Officer at SAIC, Michelle Nebiasi, who, with you guys, have not encountered her. She's amazing, probably coming to make her for her role. And she's going to be a player in this industry for a very long time. And I asked her, you know, given the threat environment that Tim has just described, what's the number one thing you're worried about? And you know what she said? She did not say external threats. She said she's worried about insiders in the company, that they don't have the ability to monitor as the workforce composition is changing and as the places those people work are changing. And so a really interesting thing that I took away from that is the imperative for us to have curated our spaces. And that means everybody. I mean, some of it is about visitor management, but some of it's also about proper vetting of people who are maybe working with me. What's a visitor in the first place? Is an employee who is a okay, sometimes goes in, how do you place that relationship? How do you know whether they're upset or not? What's appropriate to collect on that employee or not? What's appropriate to collect on a visitor or not? So that's one thing that she mentioned that just really, I thought talking my students are going to think you're picking up. The other thing that, you know, I have a bit of being able to kind of because it's amazing. And just talk to people and find out what they think about security. A theme that has showed up over and over again is culture. And I don't know, any micro fans out here? You guys know micro?
Dirty jabs.
Micro has a thing called safety third. If you know micro, you've probably heard of it. The whole, you know, I think it applies to beautiful security, which is this idea that, you know, we've got to get our employees of our teams, but I get their heads wrapped around the idea that we are not taking care of this floor down. Right? They are part of the process. They have to take commercial responsibility for the security of themselves, their teammates, of Adobe. And it's not just the security team doing something for you as a service, and everything is going to be fine because the security team is tight. That's a culture problem. As a security leader, the ability to influence the culture of the organization is critical. And that's come up over and over.
And so true, right? So when we think about COVID, right, there were a couple different kinds of companies coming into COVID. You had companies that had intentionally strong, well-developed cultures, right? They did it on purpose. They had an employee base that was generally bought in, which allowed them to work at scale with very little oversight, right? And then in the absence of direct leadership, the employees would generally know what they're supposed to be doing. And then you have companies that they had an okay culture. It was probably not intentionally done. And, you know, it was fine. It got things done. And then you had, you know, companies that really didn't care about their culture. It was like, get your work done type thing, which always don't do great. Coming out of COVID with all the political anxiety, all of the health anxiety, the news cycle driving anxiety for everything that you didn't understand. I would argue there's probably not a single publicly traded company that has an intact culture the way it was before.
Wow.
So if you're starting a new company, Gigi, from the ground up, and you implement a culture, that's one thing. But if you have a fully standing company, dispersed, disrupted employee population, how do you rebuild culture in flight?
It's a lot to unpack on that for you, but it's very interesting because I think that organizations are more focused on operational resilience, but not in people resilience. And what you just mentioned in regards of COVID, there is people even that till now it didn't recover yet. There is a lot of, mental problems, stress, anxiety, as you said, and we just normalize those things. We are very fragile out there, and we do not recognize that. So I would say to start building a culture, you need to back to basics and be focused on people. Instead to be transactional, of course, every company needs money and wants to grow and wants to create more and have more, but you're not gonna hit your voice if your people is not there. So back into the basics, focus on your people. And that is, I would say, like step one to create that culture. Leaders today are facing a lot of stress as well. And it's normal that organizations are always in crisis. Today is a crisis, tomorrow is another one, and we just normalize that. And that should be the normal thing. You have to be more preventive. And how you're going to address that? Well, you have to create a program to be preventive, but be focused on people because people matters, and it matters a lot. How you really are, what are you doing to create a safe environment to them, and they feel like accepted and that they belong to the place that they work. Because there is a lot of things that harassment, for example, microaggressions, that we just normalize. We have the tendency to bullying people, and it's gonna be okay. And we have that misunderstanding in regards of diversity. Diversity is not about colors, religions, or colors. It's about the skills. Just look this room. There's a lot of diversity here. Genders, generations, skills, experiences. And every of each of us has our own bias, right? So the perception of the risk, talking about risk, is going to be different in each of us. And that is what it's make us stronger. And that is culture. So if we back to the basics, creating be focused on what matters is people. It's very fractured now with all the polarization, and social media is not helping leader. But if we just take away those stereotypes and see the person as it is, as a person, we're gonna be stronger, get better results, and build a very strong culture.
Give me the jazz hands. Which one of you guys wants to start prompt? There we go. Jen. All right, so you mentioned risk. Risk is going to be different for different organizations, different business lines, right? We know this. We could go into depth about how to think about risk, like how does risk become a threat, right? Like all these things. Some of us understand it, others don't really. But coming out of COVID, with all the stressors, with all of the politicization, all of the different types of people, and even Bill Maher, right? So Bill Maher last week had a guest on the show, And Bill Maher was like, the first step is we got to get back to talking. We have to find common ground. And the guest said, like, no, that's dangerous. There is no common ground. How do we deal with that with employees like moving forward? If we're going to rebuild culture, how do we get people talking? How do we address the potential or perceived individual threats that not everybody may be aware of, threats to identity or whatever that might be?
I'll answer that the best way that I can. Maybe a little bit more background about myself, since I think I'm quite the least on this panel. My background is in software engineering. I always had a passion for security, and was able to transition and use my kind of love of tech and the security kind of mindset and bring them together. Then worked at a great company that you may be familiar with, known as Twitter. One of the things that I owned there was all of the global technology for corporate security, including health safety. And one of the challenges that we had with our employees was trust. They did not trust we had their best intentions, nor did they trust the policies, the procedures, all the governance, why it mattered to themselves. So we tried to build, as Gigi said, a culture of taking care of each other. That is not just about yourself, but it's about the people that you work with, your managers. Those all matter as well too. And so we tried to build a community of trust and with the importance of safety. And so by doing that, we actually created advocates within the company, that it wasn't just security top down, it wasn't security for managers, it wasn't security for policy, but it was colleagues saying to each other, hey, did you think about this? Did you know about this? And that really helped us grow in a really good way. So I would agree, start with the basics, start with people, but also trust. And build that trust with them, and don't assume that you have that day one.
Great answer. You don't want to do crowns. You want to piggyback off of hers?
No,
I had a good one for you.
And so we were.
Oh, okay.
So,
He's hiding behind it.
Yeah. It's just obviously too shy. So, one thing I want to add on to that is, obviously there's the people aspect as well, but we gotta also remember that we all work for a business, in a business, and that business also has a mission, right? So you have to make sure that people are bought into the mission of the business. And that's one thing, our CEO at Circle, he says circle first, right? Circle first. And so get them bought in, understanding what we're here to do. We're here to take over the hydration market. We're here to help people drink more water by making it tasty. You can find all those taglines, right? But he means it, right? Because we're all individuals, yes, but we all work for this company, and we all need to make this company succeed. And the way that I help do that, right, and build trust with people, and especially with my team, is I tell them from day one, even in an interview, I'm not here to hire sheriffs. I'm here to hire mayors, right? If you're a security manager, or you're a safety manager out there enforcing OSHA guidelines or whatever, I don't want you to be a sheriff and knock them down. I want you to be a mayor and build them up, right? How can you help them? How can you have that vision? So
Totally stealing that, and then that's somebody else.
that the following.
Tim was with Epiphany. I hire mayors. Thank you.